Here we have an agenda for the future is our first group, Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance, and then Foundation Drainage Reimbursement Program from Lyle. So we'll start out with the agenda for the future. And Mr. Van Zant, you want to introduce the group that's with you and proceed?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Matt Van Sant. I'm President of the Chamber of Commerce here in Claremont County, also Executive Director of our Chamber Foundation, which was the sponsor of the project that we'll be presenting today. With me is Dave Gooch. Dave is President with Park National Bank here in Claremont County and was the Chief Volunteer Officer for this project and gave us many, many hours of the bank's time to make this project come to the point we're at today. And then George Brown, many of you know, with Senior Services, retired, but now doing some consulting work with the Chamber. And we brought George in really to make sure the process hit the deadlines, because there were a lot of volunteers, a lot of others involved in the project, and we had a timeline that we set aggressively, what was now about a year ago, and we're real grateful for the work that George did to help us hit that deadline. So we're going to just give you a little background today, talk a little bit about the process and a little bit about the results, and then really wrap it up with this call to action. For some background, it seemed like just yesterday, but it really wasn't. It was over 25 years ago that a broad-based effort here in Claremont County was conducted to present the first vision for Claremont County. So I'm holding that book in my hands. I think it's one of two known versions that are still around. And it's fun to look in the back at the numbers of volunteers that were involved and some of the names, and some of those folks are still around and in fact in this room this morning. But I think the real message this morning is that when this agenda for the future for Claremont County was initiated, it was about resetting priorities. I think many of us know that over time, physical, social, economic change occurs, and particularly in Claremont County in the last 25 years, you can just drive the streets and see the differences that have occurred. About the time that we were thinking about these differences coming out of the recession was at the same time that the Chamber Foundation was formed, and the Chamber became the sponsoring agency for the Lead Claremont program. And one of the first things that the Lead Claremont team decided is we really ought to look at our origins as a program and evaluate some of the ideas that came forth in this study, which was produced in 1991 and had a 10-year planning horizon. And that work was ably led by Dave Gooch, the Lead Claremont class of 2012. But Dave got launched into this with some really good strategic partners, and I want to mention them. Early on in this process, Duke Energy stepped up and said, we care about Claremont County, and we want to invest in some of the long-range thinking, and underwrote a lot of the project. We also were mindful in moving forward with the project that it was important to align to some degree with the Greater Cincinnati Foundation and United Way, who both make major investments out here in our agencies and our agency partners. So things like the bold goals, education, income, and health, and then with GCF, their investing framework, thriving people, thriving places. And in the process of looking at some of their ideas, we met the Community Building Institute at Xavier University. So some of you may know the name Liz Bloom, but really brought Liz Bloom in to talk about some of the more contemporary ways of doing visioning. And in a couple words, it was affirmative inquiry. When we got into this project, the idea was not to talk about threats and weaknesses, but really talk about the things that are working and what are people proud of. And so it's about wishes, and it's about successes. So we brought in the Community Building Institute, brought George Brown in, recruited Dave Gooch to run this process. And so at this point, I kind of turn it over to Dave. He can talk a little bit about the evaluation that his team did and the experience that we've had for the last 12 months. Thank you.
Hey, well, thanks, Matt. Pretty interesting to go back and review the Claremont 2001 document. That was our team assignment in the Lead Claremont class, and really to reflect back to what things were like 21 years ago in 1991. A lot has changed, but a lot hasn't changed. And going through the process, there was a lot of great recommendations that came out of that process, one of which actually was to develop a leadership program in Claremont County, hence the Lead Claremont program. It's a little ironic that we had a chance to be a part of a group that came from this initial recommendation almost 25 years ago. So going through the process, basically the key recommendation was, hey, this is a great thing to do. We need to have a vision for Claremont County. We need to understand the values that we have, the assets that we have here in our community, and how do we best leverage those moving forward. So the recommendation our work team had is, hey, this document's a great document. It's 25 years old, but let's update it. Let's go through another process based on the environment that we live in today, and establish a new vision for Claremont County for the future. So I guess back, you mentioned the initial meeting we had at the Nature Center probably over a year ago now, closer to 18 months ago. We had an initial conversation that, hey, we'd like to kick off a visioning project here in Claremont County and recruit some volunteers. The idea was very well accepted, and we moved forward with the idea with the help of Duke Energy and some others. So over the last year, we've been holding numerous community sessions, community meetings at various points in Claremont County. I think we had over 50 meetings in total initially to gather feedback from our community as to what does the community value about Claremont County, what are the things that they like, what are the area of opportunities that we see for our community moving forward. So we took these initial conversations, we took the feedback from these community conversations. We had another meeting at American Modern Insurance and kind of dissected all the analysis and feedback that we received and came up with some themes and goals and values that we really want to organize here moving forward. Those themes and values and goals are identified in the 8-page handout that you have in front of you. From that session back in April of 2014, we decided that, hey, to move this forward, we need to have some teams of experts that represent each of those themes and values that have been established and help further move this project along. So they took the information that was given to them. They met as committees and basically defined 23 goals in total that we want to establish for Claremont County moving forward, which are identified in the 8-page handout here. So in summary, we've had numerous meetings. There's been over 1,000 volunteers here in Claremont County involved in this process. Very excited about where we ended up. And I think that we've kind of moved through the investigative stage, collecting information, collecting thoughts, ideas from our community members. We've encapsulated those ideas in the 8-page document. And now is the time to really implement some action plans to move forward in a very collaborative manner to try to achieve the goals that have been established and identified in your handout there. So Friday of this week, we have a kickoff. We have a gentleman coming in from Oklahoma City. He's the Chamber of Commerce president there. Oklahoma City went through a similar process back in the late 80s where they were basically a Dust Bowl town. They were having a lot of issues back then with economic development and a lot of businesses and people leaving. They went through a community process, visioning process, to where they were basically able to transform their community, transform their town to where they are today, which is one of the top 5 cities in America as far as economic development and growth. So it'll be a neat story to listen to. There's plenty of spots still available. 11:30 at the Holiday Inn on Friday. So anxious to hear his story and tie that story into the agenda project here that we're working on here locally.
Commissioners, before we turn it over to George for some additional comments, I want to take a minute to emphasize what Dave said about the summer work teams. I think everyone should know that the Board of County Commissioners and agencies and organizations here in Claremont County were very well represented. It was very broad-based. I think when we get done with this and start looking at everyone that either participated in a conversation or answered an online survey, the conversations, the feedback that we have exceeded 1,000 voices, or we call them voices. In the process, we mapped where those voices were coming from to try to make sure we hit the rural and the more developing parts of the county. When you look at the work themes, whether we were talking about economic opportunity or the community or lifelong learning, the values kept popping up. By the way, while you're doing those things around economic opportunity, you don't forget that we're trying to balance growth and development with a rural, small-town feel. And these themes and these values just kept popping up again and again. We're real proud of the work that was done by the volunteers in this community. It was huge. It was really huge. So we do have the event on Friday. George, any additional points, website stuff, those kind of things?
A couple of things briefly. First, at a personal level, when I arrived at Claremont Senior Services in July of '91, one of the first things on my desk was the report. It was issued almost to the day, I think, that I arrived. And it was a great pleasure to be a part of seeing things implemented from that report. In a way, I would describe it over the 20-plus years that I was at Senior Services, of being a part of bringing folks together in the community to make good things happen for not only seniors but all of our citizens. And coming full circle for me, when Matt called a year plus ago and asked if I would be involved with this, it's just a real honor to the legacy of Bill Over and Ed Parrish and others, including some, as Matt noted, still sitting in this room today, who helped make that happen, and to see this carry on. And it really, the parallels are striking in terms of honoring values, the sense of knowing we need economic development. Big things have happened, greater things need to happen, but needing to honor our rural roots and our small town communities, the importance of those things to our citizens. So where we are today, it's already been mentioned, big meeting on Friday, that's kind of the call to action launch, the action stage of this. All 7 of the theme teams have either met or will be meeting within the next few weeks between now and the 1st of February, starting to get down to the nitty-gritty of laying out sub-teams to work on the goals, and what we anticipate, wanting to be sure we're communicating with the citizens, is that through the website, ClaremontAgenda.org, if you Google it, just ClaremontAgenda.org, you can read all the details. This 8-page executive summary that you've already seen, the full 54, 55-page report is already on the website. We'll be communicating there and giving citizens an opportunity to give us feedback through a blog kind of a format on that site. Probably in May, we'll do a community, very broad, open community reporting session for the teams to report. And again in the fall to measure our progress for this year. So just the partners that we've talked about, some have been mentioned, but I want to just note specifically that including those of you from this office, it just comes immediately to mind. I think there's at least a half a dozen key folks from the county as partners that are serving on the various teams. Andy, John are serving on a couple of our teams. And that's critical for that partnership, you guys to be involved, and we appreciate that.
I think the commissioners were each involved in one of the teams as well. I know mine was transportation, and Commissioner Ubel was economic development. So I think we were all pretty deeply involved and really value the outcomes that we've come up with.
This is the first time I've seen this, but it's a really nice condensation of where we've come from as a county and where we're going. So whoever put all that, or took the 51 pages and boiled it down to 8, it was
Did a great job.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Good. Let's make sure we get a pile of these to hand out.
We have
That's right.
10,000 units. Told my friends, if half of those boxes are in the office, by mid-year, I'll be very disappointed. So we'll drop some down here.
Yeah,
to
we'd
make
like
sure
to
that-
have, we'd like to be able to pass those out in our lobby, and,
Stack of them right here.
okay, we're good.
The library is ours already grabbed a couple boxes, and we'll be distributing them there. Stay tuned.
We'll see you Friday.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.